Hi, I'm Alex Winston, here with Ted McClain and Mike Ernst of Expedite All for another in our series of conversations that we're calling All Things Expedited. Guys, I wanted to talk today a little bit about an issue that seems to have been a hot topic for 2-3 years now in freight, and that is fraud and scams and theft within the freight industry. Some people have called it the fraud apocalypse, what's been going on the last 18 months or so. And I think it kind of sprang originally out of a lot of activity with COVID. Maybe, Mike, I'll start with you. Just generally, tell us about the things you're hearing, where you're hearing them, who you're hearing them from, about what's been going on in the freight industry with fraud.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Alex. So you're really hearing it from every angle. You're seeing a lot of postings on social media, a lot of publications out there. TIA just came out recently with the 2024 stats. I think they commented there was something like 24 or 27% increase to theft and fraud within our space. That cost an additional $450 million, if memory serves me, based on their publication. But it's really become rampant. Those committing the fraud are getting really good at, getting to those loads, getting to those customers, getting to those revenues, and it's become a major problem in the industry.
One question I get all the time from people who are really concerned about this, because they've got to entrust their freight to someone, right? And they can't keep total control over it at all times, is, how do you ensure that there are no bad actors who, mean to either not deliver that freight or steal it or maybe double broker that freight? How do you make sure that there's none of those in your network at Expedite All?
With Expedite All specifically, sure. We've got an extreme vetting process that we put every driver through. A lot of our growth from a vehicle count is organic. We've been working with these partners for a long time. It really started from the consulting arm of our business, helping them manage everything back office. And that's how we kind of developed the strategy we have and the standards that we hold. But, the bad actors don't get in. And then, as we described our customers, we don't go out of that closed loop network of drivers that we've developed. So when we come to our partners, we know who the driver is. We know their background, their safety records. They've gone through training. In many cases, we've done the hiring. So we know who they are, and that's when we can offer that safe environment. Especially in the smaller vehicles, when you consider they don't have to have an MC or a DOT number, there's really no way for our customers, our partners, to vet them. There isn't an avenue to really do that. We're even on their insurance that we hold them accountable to keep and active. We know everything about them, so that's why we kind of tell people we know and love our drivers because they're homegrown with us. So when we come back and offer up that vehicle and that solution, it's not like going to a random load board, finding a new carrier, somebody reaching out. We've already done the homework. They don't get into the network. Another criteria they have to be a part of is through our proprietary TMS. We've got an application that they're on a GPS track and trace 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So even if somebody were to try to get in through our safety department, and that's not a short and quick process by any means, it takes months. As soon as you're going to tell them they're going to be on a track and trace 24/7, 365, all of a sudden they wouldn't want to participate anyway.
Yeah, it seems like a scammer would hear that and just say, I'll go somewhere else. I'll go on a load board, right? Find someone desperate, tell them I'm going to take their freight instead, right? Rather than go through this long process that ends up with my actual cell phone being tracked, right? And my, ID being obtained and motor vehicle record, background check. I don't think anybody who's a thief is going to go through that process when it's, there's low-hanging fruit out there on a load board, right? That they know somebody's desperate, maybe an inexperienced broker, who's in a desperate situation, right?
And that's where we feel our due diligence really differentiates us from the market or our competitors. It is not, again, a quick or easy process, and you're not going to have somebody trying to commit those type of acts, try to get in our network. And we don't allow everybody in the network. network. That's obvious. We're very strategic, very slow, and monotonous about that to make sure we're bringing in the right providers so that they will uphold the standards that we're committing to our customers.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about. I think one thing that has come about over the last few years is a ton of software vendors who say we can vet the carriers for you. They're showing up at TIA, they're showing up at other freight places, and they're saying, look, just give the problem to us. Let us make sure that we're getting you the right carriers, and we'll do all the checking that you need to make sure that you're not getting some sort of scammer in your system. And there's a bunch of them now. There's a few big names out there and some smaller names out there too. I think if you tried to do research on it, you would find dozens of companies who say, we are the software to use to make sure you don't get a scammer, right? Talk a little bit for me, Mike, about those companies, what they do. Don't mention them by name, but like, what are they trying to do, and does it work for Sprinter vans?
Yeah, so the short answer to the last part of your question, Alex, no, it really doesn't. Again, with the Sprinters, unless they're within a company that has an MC or a DOT that's related to that vehicle, there's no way to check them. That's what those systems can run well and help customers with, but in the vehicles that don't have to have those solutions don't work.
Yeah, and Ted, tell me a little bit about your experience with Expedite All, your thoughts on just the safety and security of the network.
Well, I think that is one of the primary value propositions we bring to the market is the safety of the network, primarily with the Sprinter vans, because you really can't check them using any software or anything like that. So you can rest assured that any Sprinter van has gone through a very extensive vetting process. In addition, even if it is a truck that you can vet, like a straight truck that's DOT, whatever, it still takes you 30, 40 minutes to do it, even using the software that, all these companies have. So, it's a time thing. You spent 30 or 40 minutes doing that, whereas, the customers that use Expedite All, they know we've already done that. They don't have to do it. They book us in 10 or 15 minutes, and they move on to the next revenue-producing activity. So you can scale a lot quicker and do a lot more work with a lot less people by using us and not having to worry about that.
Yeah, thanks, Ted. Ted, I've noticed that when I go to trade shows where Expedite All is, a lot of times I'll hear and I'll see from Expedite All this phrase, closed loop network. Explain to me what that means, closed loop network.
Yeah, I use that a lot. The closed loop network means that is the only people that we use are the people that are in our network. As Mike mentioned, every one of them goes through a months-long vetting process, testing, training, 24-hour monitoring, and they are then admitted into our network. We never go outside that network. If you have a load and we don't have a truck, we'll tell you, unfortunately, we don't have a truck. We don't go to a load board and try to fill that one thing, one opportunity. Conferences that I've attended that are primarily focused on fraud, that approximately 85% of fraud comes from load boards. And we don't want to get into that because, again, that is part of what we provide our customers is the safety and the speed of the network.
Ted, I'll stick with you here. Tell me a little bit about the challenges of getting maybe people even within the industry to really understand small truckload and its role within the industry.
Well, I think the challenge, I think everybody in the industry that we work with understands the need when they need a pure expedited load. That's not new. I mean, they know that. They know I got to get this shipment from Atlanta to Chicago tomorrow. They know they're not going to put that on an LTL. The challenge is expanding that to things that are just purely dedicated and right-size the truck for that, or things that are higher value and the they want to move it and make sure it's not damaged, and move it off of an LTL environment and move it into a smaller vehicle. Things that are not traditionally expedited per se.
Yeah, and Mike Ernst, I've heard people say things, freight brokers say, I don't move anything on Sprinter vans and box trucks, right? Is there a missed opportunity there, you think? If they have a significant amount of customers in freight and they say we don't use Sprinter vans and box trucks, what do you think of that?
So we actually love hearing that, right? Gives us a great opportunity because really what we do is go in with that consultative approach to try to help them grow new verticals, take better care of their customers, improve their price points. So, when somebody tells us we don't really use those, the next question is really why? And then we start to dig into, okay, do you ever have smaller shipment counts that you try to parse and put multiple shipments on a 53? Have you ever taken a data set and analyzed, would it be more economical, plus you get the better speed and service by going to a smaller vehicle? We find 40% of the freight that we haul came out of that truckload world once people start to understand the value of the smaller vehicle. The other thing is they may not know how to market it. We do a lot of work with partners offering up marketing assistance, how to get that message out there about the capabilities they can leverage through our network. We spend time sitting down with their sales teams, how to ask the right questions to your current customers, because they probably do have needs for, again, high-value freight, as Ted said, the freight that's easily damageable, or that just-in-time type freight where something has gone wrong and they do have to rescue or expedite something. The freight's out there. It's just a lot of customers don't know how to ask the questions or how to position it, and then they've never seen a provider like us with the capacity we can offer in that safe environment Ted just spoke to earlier. So we love hearing those answers because it gives us an opportunity to say, well, let's take a deeper dive. We can analyze the data, help you fit the right vehicle to the right freight, and then even help you take a look at what you're missing out with your customers because you're not asking the right questions or don't have the right marketing approach to help you grow those new verticals and revenues.
And to expand on that even a little bit, we have a lot of our customers tell us, well, I got to use a straight truck on these 2 pallets because it needs to be dock high. They just take it at face value versus going back to the customer and say, well, if we ship this on a cargo van or a Sprinter van, would that work if the driver were to take it off the pallet and bring it inside? It's a faster transit and considerably more economical, even when you add the additional cost to do an inside delivery. And, if they'll ask that question, sometime people will say, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, and I think you do see a lot of these instances where somebody's maybe spending twice as much on certain types of loads than they should because they just have this idea in their head that, if I don't have a dock high truck, I can't have it at my facility, right? And they haven't really thought creatively about, and maybe they haven't realized the financial advantage, right? Because if you're doing 2 of those loads a day and say it's saving you $3,000 a day, suddenly, and making an exception makes a lot of sense if you're saving the company $3,000 a day, right? So it does, there is that aspect of it for sure. I want to talk about fear, right? I think that there's a ton of fear that stems out of fraud. And I think a lot of that fear as it relates to you guys is giving up control, right? And so your customers want to be able to know, who is the driver? Where is the driver? Who is this company I'm working with? Like, who is actually carrying the freight, right? And a lot of times they feel like, I don't want to potentially give up that control before I had it myself, right? So, Ted, what do you say to that?
We give them all that information. When you book a load with us, you get the driver information, the truck information, everything that you want. Plus, you get the 24/7 up-to-the-minute tracking that you can access at any time. So the control is still there. It's just, you have the security of knowing that this is a driver that's been vetted and trustworthy, along with the knowledge of who he is and all that other information.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think what a lot of people find is, even though when they first talk to you, they might feel like, oh, am I going to give up some control? they find that when they get the service, they're getting more control and more visibility than they had before, right? And a higher level of service as well.
And to add to that, what you'll find, when a customer wants to test you and then they realize we're fully transparent, you can have the same information on the vehicle that you booked. All of a sudden it turns back into, okay, well, we'll let your operations people do their part and we'll maintain the customer relationship. So, we have no problem, again, as Ted said, we're fully transparent in that. We'll give you all the information. But more times than not, once the customers understand the network, they start to feel comfortable, they relinquish that back to us and say, okay, you guys do the pickup and delivery and all the operational stuff. We'll focus on the customer side and continued growth and nurturing that relationship. And then they let those reins go. But once they feel comfortable and see it in action, that kind of goes away.
Yeah, thank you, Ted McClain, Mike Ernst, just explaining to us how, fraud is out there, but if you're doing it the right way, small truckload shouldn't be risky, right? It should feel like you have a lot of control, a lot of visibility, and a lot of avoidance of these kinds of problems if you're doing it with Expedite All. So thanks again for the conversation, guys, and look forward to seeing you next time.